Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of Editorial. Your channel has constantly been telling you that poll promises, freebies, is a bigger risk to our country, our economy, our people than possibly even the communal and caste politics that we have seen recently.
लाडली बहन योजना और लाडली लक्ष्मी योजना की प्रशंसा आज पूरे देश में हो रही है।
आज कर्नाटक में गृह लक्ष्मी के माध्यम से 1 करोड़ महिलाओं से ज्यादा को हर महीने 2000 रुपए मिलते हैं।
माझी लाड़की बहन योजना को यहाँ की महिलाओं ने जिस तरह अपनाया है वो अभूतपूर्व है।
और जो हम 1000 रुपया महिला सम्मान दे रहे हैं वो हम तुरंत 2000 रुपए कर देंगे, बता देते हैं।
मैंने आपकी बिजली फ्री कर दी, बताओ क्या कसूर करा। मैंने आपका पानी फ्री कर दिया, बताओ क्या कसूर करा।
Let's talk about this. Let's get right into the show. For over the years, your channel has been trying to bring to you topics which are relevant to you, which affects your life, which affects the life of your children, your future. These topics are not very trending. These topics are not topics that people consume a lot. In fact, there are few takers for this topic, but these topics are important because these topics make or break our lives. These topics decide genuinely whether our country is progressing or our country is not. So these topics become very important. But then the fact is, when we bring these topics to you, like I said, the takers are few, viewers are few, and therefore advertising revenue, viewer revenues are very less. But the fact remains, as a channel, we think it's our responsibility to get you news that matters. And that is what we are continuing to do. That is why we seek your support. Chalo, that said, let me get to our topic. You see, we've been constantly telling you that these freebies, these pre-poll promises, these welfare schemes, these unrealistic welfare schemes, let me rephrase that, unrealistic welfare schemes are going to cause us a huge problem. This is going to take us to a very bad place in the very near future. And today, let me prove it to you through some numbers. Thanks to Mint and thanks to CMI, I'm going to share some numbers with you. And that will broadly tell you why I say what I say. Let's start with the first. Let us talk about how much is your state dependent on the center. Let us take the top 5 states. Chalo, let me start with Bihar. Because we just saw Bihar, 10,000 rupees Mahila Rozgar Yojana just concluded Bihar elections. You see, Bihar's dependence on central transfer is around 72.2%. 72.2% of Bihar's revenue is dependent on central transfer. Now, if you are dependent on central transfer for your basic revenue, you tell me, where does Bihar get that excess amount to spend on its infrastructure, to spend on its development, to spend on healthcare, better healthcare, to spend on roads, to spend on schools, to spend on hospitals, to spend on beautification? Where does Bihar get money to spend on development? Because at the end of the day, whatever your revenues are, first of all, you don't earn enough revenue. Secondly, whatever your revenues are, you are now committed to welfare schemes which are unreal. Same is the case with Uttar Pradesh, 55.4%. Their revenue is dependent on central transfer. West Bengal, 53.4%. And look at states like Tamil Nadu, only 27%. Kerala, 27.1%. Gujarat, only 29.1%. Whereas, like I said, Bihar, 72.2%. The point that I'm trying to make is, look at the fiscal rationale of this kind of schemes. I mean, it's absolutely imprudent. So that's the point. I want to get you to some other figures which are very important. You see, look at Karnataka, for instance. Look at the pre-election year fiscal deficit and look at the post-election fiscal deficit. So on your screens, Karnataka, from a scale to 0 to 6, Karnataka pre-election fiscal deficit was something like 2.5 and the post-election is almost touching 3.2. Likewise, Chhattisgarh pre-election was hardly 1 and post-election is almost touching 6. Let's take Rajasthan. Pre-election, it was almost 3.8, 3.9. Post-election is almost 4. So is the case with Maharashtra. Pre-election, it was hovering around 2 and post-election, it's almost 2.5, 2.6. So the point is your fiscal deficit. Physically, you can see this. The point of me showing these kind of graphs is for us to understand that look at what has happened to the state, the condition of finance of the state. And ultimately, if you have this kind of fiscal deficit, basically the money you have to pay versus the money you have earned. So when you have to pay more than you have earned, then you call it deficit. And this is the deficit of the state. They have to pay more than they earn. They cannot meet their ends. That's the problem. And these states, when they go for elections, they offer you more freebies. And we, as citizens of this country, we accept freebies and we vote for the political party that gives you freebies. I am not just limiting myself to BJP, let me tell you. I spoke about Karnataka too. So let me be very clear about that. See, I want you to focus on the problem. The problem is freebies. Freebies is going to pull us down. Freebie will take this country to a very, very different low. And that's the reason why I wanted to do this editorial. You see, we need to understand a few more things. There is something called as committed spending. Committed spending. Every state has got committed spending. What does committed spending mean? Committed spending means salaries, pensions, and payment of interest. Interest on the money that you borrow to meet your ends. This is what you call as committed spendings. The state, no matter what, if it is flood, famine, whatever the case is, this committed spending won't come down. You have to pay salaries for people who are working for the state. You have to pay pension for the people who have worked for the state, the senior citizens, and you have to pay interest because nobody is going to let you off that. Now look at Himachal Pradesh. 83% of their total revenue goes on committed spendings. Punjab, 74% goes on committed spending. 69% of Kerala, 63% of Tamil Nadu, 61% of Assam, 56% of Maharashtra, 56% of West Bengal. This is the committed spending. Matlab, before you earn, your 56% as far as Maharashtra is concerned, it's already committed for salaries, pensions and interest. Bhai, aapke haath mein, you have 44% in your hand. Now you have to decide in that 44% whether you pay for your Ladli Bahin scheme or you pay for your healthcare scheme or you pay for your hospitals or you pay for your infrastructure or you pay for your education. You decide. You see, a lot of people wrote to me saying that, listen, you know what, there is so much poverty in this country that, you can't blame people if they vote because they are getting 10,000 rupees. Well, if we are that short-sighted, and we don't see tomorrow, we just live for today, then it is sad. I mean, this is the biggest impediment for progress. Didn't India live before freebies? Are you telling me that India only lives now? Now is the time when India is prosperous and everybody is happy? Didn't India have a life before this? Didn't we learn to live with whatever we have? Didn't we progress with whatever we had? This concept of freebies, which has come and infected our country, infected our economy, infected our politics, look at where it is taking us to. Let me give you some more data. Another very interesting figure that I want to take your attention to is, or draw your attention to, is capital expenditure, capex utilization. You see, capex utilization, states like Tamil Nadu, states like Uttar Pradesh, states like West Bengal, states like Rajasthan, states like Andhra Pradesh, states like Madhya Pradesh, capital expenditure was better last year than this year. What does that mean? If you are not spending, if you are not utilizing your capex, then it means that your development is being halted. There is a problem in your development. There is a break in your development. There is no progress happening in your state. There is no infrastructure being built in your state. There is no hospital being built in your state. There's no money that is being spent on infrastructure. That exactly is what we are talking about here. So the fact remains that, imagine giving a Ladli Bahin scheme or giving a Mahila Yojgar scheme or giving one of those schemes where you give freebies, and you are not able to spend on your hospitals. You are not able to spend on your roads. What happens to that state? Who is going to invest in that state? You see, job is when a company, a corporate, business houses come and invests in your state. They invest in your state. They pay taxes in your state. They give jobs in your state. Your state starts generating job not only for people of your state but people of the country. Your state progresses. Youth gets job. No infrastructure, no capital expenditure spends means no infrastructure. No infrastructure means nobody is going to invest in your state. You see where you are headed to? You see, another very important factor, another very important figure I want to take you through. That is GST. You see, we've been all praising government for the great GST that they've imposed and the great implementation of GST. But you need to understand some figures. GST hasn't become the strong revenue source that the government expected. You see, before GST started in 2017, states earned up to 2.8% of their GSDP, which is gross state domestic product, from the taxes that later got merged into GST. Acha, now after GST came, this fell to 2.6. That means that states are earning less from these taxes than what they used to. Now, for the first 5 years, the first 5 years of the GST, that is, the central government compensated states for any revenue loss. This compensation stopped mid-2022. Since then, the gap of loss in revenue has become more. So, the central government is also earning less from the taxes when they merged, and technically, the state government is also earning less when the merger happened. The revenue collection has come down. Please understand, your capital expenditure came down, your GST figure came down, your deficit finance went up, your expenditure gone up drastically, your dependence on center gone up drastically. Where is your state headed to? These are the parameters you can view your state. These are the questions you should ask your politician when he comes to your doorstep to offer you freebies. That's the point I wanted to make through this editorial. Like I said, this may not be the most entertaining editorial or sensational editorial, but these are things that we need to know. These are things that we need to be mindful of. These are things that I think, need to talk to people around us. People who may not understand this as clearly as you do. I think it is our job to let people know this. Because end of the day, your state economy goes down, it affects your job, it affects your earnings, it affects your life, it affects the electricity that comes to your house, it affects the road that you're walking on, it affects the municipal corporation, it affects the water supply in your house. It affects everything, it affects your life. And most importantly, it could affect your health. That's the point I wanted to make. Once again, I'd like to thank Mint and the CMI for this brilliant data, and till I see you next time, that's tomorrow at 10. Namaskar.